Welcome back to Clearview Today with Dr. Abadan Shah, the daily show that engages mind and heart for the gospel of Jesus Christ. You can visit us online at clearviewtodayshow.com. If you have any questions or suggestions for new topics, send us a text to 252-582-5028.
That's right, and if today is your first time ever joining us here on the Clearview Today Show, we want to welcome you and let you know who's talking to you today. Dr. Abadan Shah is a PhD in New Testament textual criticism, professor at Carolina University, author, full-time pastor, and the host of today's show. You can find all of his work on his website. That's abadanshah.com.
That's right. And Dr. Shah, I know that you've brought many pictures and videos and filming projects back for us to enjoy from your recent trip from Turkey. But I've got to tell you, the things that my kids that are enjoying the most is the Turkish delight that you brought back.
Oh,
it's almost gone.
Glad to hear
it's
that.
almost gone.
Really?
They love it.
Well,
Wow.
I hate to even be this way, but I had like half of that. So when they weren't looking,
well,
Dr.
I
Shah,
thought it was my
Dr.
kids.
Shah brought it this last Sunday when he came back. So what I did was, and this is crazy, but I just took a handful of it, just crammed it in my pockets.
Like goblin in the corner.
Evie saw me do it, which is
She
insane.
did see you do it.
I've been getting threatening messages like scrawled up, sprayed like on my wall.
Give us the Turkish delight back, and no one gets hurt.
He
too
also,
funny.
Dr. Shah also brought for my oldest son and your youngest son these little tops, these little Turkish tops where you wind it up and you like spin it. And Gavin has not stopped playing with it yet.
Really?
But he can't figure out how to do it, so I have to keep doing it. And he pulls it and he's like really weak and it just like, ooh, and then he just instantly stops it. So it's like he's playing with it but not correctly.
Yeah.
Not correctly.
Not correctly.
Oh.
So
They love it.
But it was fun. We touched on something yesterday that I know you were kind of talking about, Ryan, and you were talking about, Dr. Shah, where there was this sense of desolation in Turkey. And I thought because we touched on it yesterday, we actually got some texts of people saying, hey, we want to hear some more about that. So we moved some stuff around on the calendar to kind of make time on today's episode.
Absolutely.
I thought
Spend some more time. So, Dr. Shah, if you'll just kind of catch our listeners up with this desolation in Turkey that we're talking about. Maybe people missed yesterday's episode, which if you did, encourage you to go back and listen to that one. But what is this desolation or the ruins that we're talking about in Turkey?
Well, for me, just like going to a place like Konya. Konya is what we know as Iconium. Okay, this is, we hear about that in the book of Acts. But this city has been inhabited for over 4,000 years.
Wow.
When we see signs outside of the city limits of, our towns and cities and counties, like establish 1882 or 1753.
We think, oh man, this is historic. Wow.
This town's been around for a while.
1753. Just make that BC instead of AD.
That's
Right.
insane.
That's how some of these towns were that we were going to. So visit the cities. Unbelievable. And that this city had been inhabited by, of course, various peoples and kingdoms, but people like the Hittites, the Phrygians, of course, the Greeks, the Persians, the Romans, and of course, then 800 years ago by the Seljuk Turks that came through.
Like everybody who's anybody has inhabited
Oh my
that city.
goodness. And it was overwhelming for me at times, just walking around, looking at this. When you see what these people accomplished, and they're gone. And then you see what you are accomplishing, and it's nothing. And it's not even going to be missed. Okay, you feel like that. Not that I don't believe that's true. I believe what you do for Jesus Christ will last forever. But in the moment, it feels like, wow.
Yep. Yep.
I am not even a drop in the bucket here.
Yeah.
I'm a drop in the ocean. Right?
Yeah, it made me, and I've had that feeling too. It kind of reminds me of that Percy Shelley poem, the Ozymandias, the look on my works, ye mighty in despair, but then it's just in this big desert. It's forgotten.
Yeah.
And you think, man, and I know you were kind of saying this in when we were talking, I don't know if you said it yesterday or maybe we said it off mic, but these are kings. These are emperors.
Yeah.
And they're in ruins.
Powerful people who built powerful cities and empires and structures, whether they're palaces or tombs or temples. It is just unbelievable. And then you see what you have and you go, well, I live in the land of opportunity, but I'm not doing much with it.
I'm not making a great use of it.
One of the things that you've said, and there's many things, but one of the ones you've said that has rocked me to my core, I think these past few years, is, will it even matter that I lived?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have never thought that way before, and now I can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like the things that I'm accomplishing, the things that we're doing as a team for God's kingdom, at the 100 years from now, will anyone care at all
Yep.
that I ever lived?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a first world question. I get it.
Yeah.
I know people who are just hoping for the basic necessities of life,
Right.
like food and clothing and shelter, may not ask that question.
Yeah.
I think they do in their own way, but this is a first world question. Does it even matter that I exist? Will anybody even miss me? And who am I?
Yeah.
I know I'm a child of God through Jesus Christ. I know I have the Holy Spirit inside of me. I know that God is real, God is working. But in those moments when you stand against these ruins and you see powerful things, colossal statues, all of that, you just kind of, for a moment, feel like, wow, is all the stuff that I believe in, is it real?
Right. Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Will I even matter?
And seeing
What is God doing, you know?
seeing all of these places and hearing you talking about these places, it makes you feel so much more of a connection to history. It's not something that happened, so far removed from us. These are real people who really lived, and really not that long ago.
Not that long ago.
We as a nation are very young
Yeah.
in comparison to other nations, but history itself was not that long ago. I mean, this wasn't some other time far removed from us. These were people just, a couple thousand years away.
And what helps us in those moments of almost feeling crushed, right, if I can say it that way, is to remind ourselves that history is ultimately His story.
Amen.
That's right. That's right.
Amen.
You have to put God, the living, true, triune God, back where He belongs, which is He is the author of creation. He is the head of the cosmos. He is not bound by times. He is not at the beck and call of these kings and emperors.
Right.
He does not sit there and go, oh, I guess this empire is next. I'm going to try to make something happen through them. He is the one who sets up kings and takes out kings.
That's right.
He is the one who brings kings and kingdoms and empires in place, and He's the one who makes them vanish. Like, where are the Hittites?
Right. They're gone.
They're gone.
Yeah.
Gone.
In fact, up until the 19th century, a lot of archaeologists and historians would say that Hittites were just a myth.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Because there's no evidence for them.
They're wiped out completely. Just
Isn't that-
gone.
Isn't that heartbreaking though? Like
Vanished.
an entire people group. Like there's not only are you gone, but there's no evidence substantial evidence that you really even were
Like
here.
imagine thousands of years from now if there's like Americans, there's no such thing. We can't find anything.
Yeah.
Like,
I remember my
imagine,
great grandma used to tell me about this magical land called America.
but I think
didn't
it was just a
exist.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah. We hear about Uriah the Hittite, right? So these are his people. Now, Uriah the Hittite, I believe there was a contingent or a little what's the word? Like a colony up in Israel, what we know as the Promised Land, right? There was a colony of Hittites that moved down there, maybe after some battle, maybe after some famine or whatever. They moved to the south. And I think Uriah the Hittite, remember David committed adultery with his wife? He came from that colony, I believe. Hence, he was part of the people of Israel. Hence, he was part of David's bodyguard. I mean, he was a very prominent person.
Yeah.
But Hittites as a people lived in the heart of what we know today as modern-day Turkey. Okay? So it was a powerful empire. They did some amazing things, and Bible repeatedly talks about the Hittites. But up until the 19th century, we couldn't find them
Wow.
because they were buried.
I think that's what that's doing for me right now. It is this kind of building on what you were just talking about, that no matter how mighty they might have been, no matter how powerful their empire was, God allowed them to come to that place. And just like He brought them into power or allowed them to gain power,
Yeah.
He
Right.
took them out when the time was right.
Of course.
And He took them out so completely that, like you said, there's just no evidence that they ever existed at all. Our worst fear, like what we were talking about, is a reality for them.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, when we go to these archaeological sites, and if some of you all have traveled, whether on YouTube or listening by radio or podcast, this is not how those sites existed until archaeologists got there. They were buried.
Yeah.
And there was word among the farmers or the sheep herders that, yeah, if you go down this direction about 20 miles and you go by the creek, you'll find some things sticking out of the ground. And maybe there was something there. And so archaeologists from Germany and Italy, I'm talking about Turkey area, mostly Germans, Italians, and then, Americans, British archaeologists came. They go over there and they start digging. And after not just months, years of digging, they'll open up a theater. You know how deep and vast some of these theaters are? So dig. And you have to go slow because you don't want to go too fast and mess things up. So after digging for years, they come to the bedrock of that place, like Ephesus. Ephesus, what's very interesting is, like, we went to Ephesus, and that was like one of the highlights of the trip. The library of Celsus is there. Paul and Thecla's cave is there, and all that. So it's a lot over there. According to the guide and some of the people who are in charge at the place, they said maybe 15% of Ephesus is being seen. The rest is still buried.
Wow.
And it will take about 300 to 500 years to uncover everything.
That is crazy.
If they start digging
crazy.
every day, 8 to 5.
Oh my gracious!
When God decides to bury you, He buries you completely.
You are buried.
You are well and truly buried.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the place. Remember that where Paul, came in, and all of a sudden they're like, their business of Diana, Artemis, goes out, and so they're like, oh no, the idol makers get all up in arms, and they're like, hey guys, we know that this statue came from heaven, and because this is the great Diana, she takes care of us, she is our blessing, and this man Paul is coming and he's causing all this ruckus.
Gosh.
Walking through the streets of Ephesus and hearing that, it's only 5%, maybe 15% is what we're looking at.
Yeah, the rest of it is buried.
Yeah, you see these mountains all around us? That's where the rest of the city is.
Underneath
it. Like, we were walking up the mountain to go to a cave to check things out. There were some things there, historical. So I'm like, are you telling me that I'm actually walking on the ruins? He said, yes, of course. This is where much of Ephesus lies. I'm like, why aren't people digging it? Well, I mean, so much has to go into place. You got to have the right people digging it. You just cannot have just anybody coming and dig, because you got to have people who are knowledgeable, educated, all of that. And then they have to categorize it and catalog it, and all these things have to happen. Then you have to relocate some things. So it is like a 400, 500, 600 year job.
Goodness.
And then you have to manage it. Once you open these sites up, then you have to manage it.
Yeah.
So this is manageable. This 15% or 5%, I don't know exactly what the number was, but this is manageable. But when you open the whole site, it's a whole city.
Yeah.
Of close to 250, 300,000 people.
You don't think about, at least I don't think about the scale of archaeological digs.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking like, you're excavating this, like maybe the size of this room, or like maybe even the size of like our church building, like just kind of like, you're digging this building out, but this is a whole city that we're talking about.
You think about like our city. Like, we live in a fairly small town, but if there were a mountain on top of our town, we can't be like, I think a year or so we can get the town out from underneath a literal mountain.
Imagine all the streets and the crossroads and the various businesses and the homes and all of that. You got to dig all this up.
Because you go, and that's something that you've told me when we went to Israel. Like, you go to like a Capernaum or like one of these ancient cities, or like Tel Dan or not Tel Dan, the Hatzor. Like, you can see the outlines of buildings, and you think, man, this was a small city. It's like, no, this is just what we could recover.
Yeah.
Like
you get in the heart of the place, but not every home.
Right. Because if you look out, you just see that little plot of land, and it's like, this was a fairly small city. No, not
this
really.
This is just a small glimpse of it.
Yeah. And Ephesus was a harbor, right? So the harbor is still underneath.
Wow.
It's sitting at the same place where it's sat for the past 3,000 years. So how are you going to uncover that harbor?
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do with all the present day modern ships and and all the cargo that's sitting. You gotta move all of that. So that's never going to be excavated.
Yeah, it's just buried forever.
It's buried.
Golly.
Same thing with Egypt.
Yeah.
Some of the places we went to, like Memphis. Where is Memphis? Well, you're standing on it.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you want to relocate the entire city of modern day Memphis, where are you going to send them?
Kick all these people out of their homes and stuff.
And we got to go. Why? Because we're going to dig up everything here.
Oh, but I live here.
Not anymore.
You're gone.
Not anymore. Gosh.
I was just going to say these vast empires, these like people who I know at the height of their power, they thought just like we think, this is going to last forever.
Yeah.
This is it. This is where humanity has peaked. And yet at the same time, all these thousands of years later, we still have God's word. God's word has abided. Those has remained. Those empires are gone.
That's right.
I think about Daniel, right? The reason I talked about Daniel, I talk about Daniel is because the Babylonian Empire controlled the eastern fringes of Turkey, modern day Turkey, or Asia Minor, or Anatolia. Okay, it controlled that eastern fringe. And if you remember, Nebuchadnezzar had this dream, right? And he told his magicians, the soothsayers, the Chaldeans, he said, "Tell me not only the interpretation, but tell me the dream, because that's how I'm going to know you're telling the truth." And they're like, "Oh, well, we can't do this. No one can do this." He said, "Okay, you're going to all die."
Oh, no.
Yeah, you're going to die. So Daniel steps in because Daniel is also on the list because he's one of the wise men of Babylon. And so he approaches the king and said, "Look, give us some time. We'll find out. We'll let you know." And of course, the king gives him some time, and God gives Daniel and Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, which is Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, he gives them the interpretation. And the interpretation is this: the gold, the statue, it's the statue that Nebuchadnezzar saw. It is made out of different metals or things. The head is of gold. That is Babylon. The breastplate or the arms are of silver, which is going to be the next kingdom, and which is Medo-Persia, right? Then comes the bronze, which is Greece. Then comes iron, Rome, and then it's kind of interesting that it's the next is the feet and toes, which are partly of potter's clay and partly of iron. And so, what is the meaning of all this? Well, what God was telling Nebuchadnezzar is, don't think for a moment that you are going to last forever. You're just passing through. In fact, 4 other kingdoms are coming after you. And underneath that, multiple kingdoms are coming who are going to control everything. You are a kingdom of gold, but you are just a small part of the vast plan of God.
Yeah.
So, move down the list. Where are we? People ask the question, are we in the last days? I would say, yeah. In fact, we have been for the past 2,000 years.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That's very true.
It could be tonight. It could be 1,000 years from now.
Yeah.
I don't know. You don't know.
You think about the timeline, like you were saying, I think in the last episode, if America's only existed for 400 something years, let's say 450 years,
right,
and we've been living in the last day for the last 2,000.
Yeah.
It's not a coincidence that, or it's not even not a coincidence. It's almost painfully obvious that we are in these last days.
Yeah. These are the last days. This is the last point. So, anyways, all that to say is, when you think about the ruins, when you think about all these things, just know that God is teaching us some lessons, especially about America.
And I know
to be aware of that.
Something you said earlier is that His ultimate purpose is redemption. God's ultimate purpose in teaching us that is not just to remind us, "Hey, I'm in charge, so you better listen."
Right.
There's a plan of redemption and salvation that if we do listen, if we do follow that plan, we'll be saved and we'll be with Him. It's not just a what you call it, like a who's bigger, like whose stick is bigger.
Right.
He has nothing to prove that way. It's just so that it's in our benefit that we listen and that we submit.
Yeah. That's right. God is in control. He is the ruler of time. He is the ruler of kingdoms and kings. He sets people in places of power. He takes them down. Does that mean that we're not going to suffer at times at the hands of evil rulers? Well, look at history. Some had to. But even through that, God builds his kingdom, spreads his kingdom, and of his kingdom there will be no end.
That's right.
And Jesus Christ is the Lord of all, and every knee shall bow before him, every tongue shall confess that Jesus is Christ, to the glory of God the Father. And so, how do we see all the craziness in our world today? It's going to pass away.
That's right.
God is in control. He's going to bring things to end, but it's going to be on his time. And his timing may be tomorrow. His timing may be 200 years from now. His timing may include America. His timing may be such that America will become just a distant reminder of like the Lycian League. I mean, Lycian League was a powerful idea. How can we rule each other, rule together without being under compulsion or whatever? But as I stood over there, I mean, even what was there was put together by archaeologists. It wasn't left that nice. And here is where we found the principles to build our nation.
Yeah.
And now this is lying in ruins. So what are the chances that America will be there? I don't know. I would like to think we will be. You know, there are enough remnants here to turn back to God. So I would like to say we will be.
Yeah. So encouraging to remind ourselves that while nations may rise and fall, while we may have people in power that we don't agree with or don't have our best interests in mind, that God is in control still. Man, that would encourage me. I hope it encouraged you guys as well. If you enjoyed today's episode, if you have questions or suggestions for new topics, send us a text to 252-582-5028, or you can visit us online at clearviewtodayshow.com, and you can partner with us financially on that same website. We are grateful to all of our giving partners and grateful to all of you who are helping us spread the message of hope to the nations. We love you guys. We'll see you next time on Clearview Today.